Assalamu alaikum, students, and today we are discussing part number 8 for our HTML series over here. And today we are going to complete this HTML forms with its little PHP page, and that PHP page is then going to be giving the data on the database. So today our part number 8 is going to be discussing the remaining attributes or remaining form attributes or input attributes about the HTML forms. Again, from our repository, which is the w3schools.com. If you remember, this was our part 7, and this was the personal legend over there, the personal field set over there, the first name, last name. We applied some CSS also over here. We will do that more over here in today's video. And we talked about this radio button, the check boxes over there, and this choose what car you own, and all that stuff over there. Coming to we have done in the last one, we talked about this HTML forms over there. This was the whole thing. And we talked about the form attributes over there, how you are going to have this form attribute over there. Then we talked about this HTML form elements over there. We talked about the input. We still have to discuss different types of input types over there, which will be here in the input types. We also talked about the label, how that label is being used over there, and that label is using the variable word variable over there. So we also talked about the select drop down box over there, if you remember it, and this was being used over here in our this Honda, Toyota, Suzuki, and all that one over there. Uh, we also talked about this, and we also used about this size variable, how this size was going to show how many select boxes were going to be there. Then multiple selections were also allowed if you have like 4 different cars over there. Then text area, we also added this text area, and you can change the size of this text area also over there. And the button which we added at the very end was a submit button at that time. So the submit buttons can be done, and on click was the attribute. So on click, this particular line over there, which I'm selecting at present, is going to make an alert box called as hello world over there. Whenever it's not going to submit, of course the submit button is going to be something giving a type submit over there, and on click is going to submit over there. So that's going to be different. I will just going to talk about later on. Then we talked about this field set and legend. As I told you that all these personal data was confined together, all these three were confined over there in one box over there. It's just like aggregating all the same things or grouping all the related things inside one thing, as shown over there. We also talked about this data list over there, the data list element over here. So this is a data list over there, just like this, to show you a little reminder. Is this data list, you can see it's a drop down data list over there, where input again is the starting tag over there. The list is equal to browsers and name. And in the data list over there, you are actually going to give all the options which are going to be inside that. And as you can see, these are all the browsers which are available nowadays. The most famous ones, the Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Opera, and Safari. At present, I am using the Safari because I am on a MacBook. So these are all the browsers available there, and you can use this input type over there. Sorry, the data list over there for this all over there. Then there's a type submit button over there, as you can see over there. So you can select anything. Let's say I select something over there. Sorry about this one. So if I have this one, Firefox over there, and I submit it. So this is the PHP page over here on w3school.com. Today we are going to talk about this PHP page as well. We are going to start a little bit of PHP, and I will show you in tabular form how this data is going to be displayed on your uh, browser, and it's going to be submitted. Still, we are not going to talk about the database thing. That will be in the part number 9, but I will tell you a little bit about in detail about how that actually works over there. Coming back to this one, after data list, we also talked about the output element. I will discuss this one a little more when we are discussing the PHP over there, because this is actually the result which can be done from the JavaScript, as you can see over there. Just to give you an idea, this example, you are having a slide bar. This is actually an input. Again, type is range. I will discuss this one shortly in the input types over there. So by this changing this slider, you are actually having this value change from 0 to 100, sorry, 0 to 100, yes. And you are having a text box input over there, which you can actually have changed over there to any something value, and this is just giving you the sum of it, and this is being done. So this 90 over here is actually the output. So this 90 is actually the output, as you can see over there. So this is that output over there, and after there are two line breaks over there, and then the input type submit over there. So you can submit that button as well, but that is actually going to submit that whole form over there. Today, our main task is actually going to do that submit. And just to give you an output over there, this on input, which means that whenever you're going to do an input over there in this category on either this thing or either this thing, supposedly you do some change over there, sorry, on this thing. So if you're doing some change over there, let's say I put in something over there. So every time there is going to be an input, this is going to be inside this double quotes, this evaluate, this expression is going to be actually be done. And what is that expression? That is x dot value, which means whatever that x is output over there, output name is equal to x. Name, I told you in the last time, name is equal to variable. So this x is going to be given a value dot. Now this is a function in JavaScript. In fact, it is also available in many of the other languages, maybe in Java or somewhere, where the function name is parse int. Now, up till now, you have been told that all the variables which you are dealing are just variables over there, and they are just like either strings or something. But whenever you want to do the plus symbol on any of these values, because these values are coming in as just simple values, so you have to convert them into an integer value. So for that purpose, parse int means converting it, just like in C language, if you remember it, you cast a data type on one of the numbers or any data over there by using the word int over there, float or character or something like that. So this is just like a function, parse int, brackets open, brackets close, and inside it there is the value. That is actually the value of a dot value, because a dot value is actually this thing, that is the input type range a. ID is equal to a, name is equal to a. Remember one thing, name is the variable which is being used, or name is the attribute. The value which you give to this name attribute is actually the variable name which is being used in JavaScript, and that will also go to your PHP page or to your database over there. The ID is used only for if you are actually going to have some styling being done inside your CSS. So ID is not actually associated with any other JavaScript thing or whatever, but if you want to do some CSS styling, or you want to change something inside your displaying HTML document, then you can use this ID. Otherwise, the variable is actually this value of this attribute name. So that's why here is the a dot value, and then again you are adding a plus symbol, parse int b dot value, and what is happening over there, you're just giving the value, the sum of these two over there. So you can add anything. Let's say I don't want to do the plus symbol, I want to do some minus over there, so this will be something like that. So you can see now when I'm adding whatever that runs, so it's 100 minus, but since I have actually put minus over there, so I have to change this to negative over there. So now when this will be 100 minus 50, so whenever there is an input change, remember this only, remember whenever the page loads, it's not displaying anything. Why? Because there is no change in the input. At present, the user has not clicked anywhere. So when I'm going to slide this button, you can see now when this is going the negative value, because now it's less than 50. So whatever that value, minus 50 is equal to minus 20. So this was actually 30 over there. So 30 minus 50 is minus 20, and that value is being displayed over here inside this output over there. So you can see over there very easily that this output is being used at runtime. You can display any output over there inside your HTML document over there, and this is being inside the form. Remember, whatever element or tags we are discussing in the last part or today's part, they are all part of the form element over there. That is, everything has to be inside this form on the ending tag of the form over there. So this is about the output. And coming back to the next thing, let's just go with very fast over there. The input types over there, I will discuss some of them here in front of you, and then we will just apply some CSS, and then we will move on towards the PHP thing, which is actually the main part of today's lecture or part. So the first thing, as I've already told you, input can be of many different types. You can see over here in this thing, there is a lot amount of input types available. Input type is equal to button, you have a checkbox, you have a color, you have a date, you have a date time local, you have an email, you have a file, you have a hidden. Hidden is something a little different, I will tell you just now a little later. Then there is an image if you want to upload an image over there or something like that. Then you have a month if you just want to select the month over there. If you want to have the type of number, then you can have a password, you can have a radio. Type is radio button, we already use that radio button. We also use that checkbox over there already in our HTML file, if you remember it. This was that radio button, and these were the checkboxes over there. Then afterwards, there is a reset. I already told you about this reset. You can reset all the values which the user has input. Supposedly there are some wrong values or something wrong has been entered. So you can press that button, reset over there, and you can clear all those values which are inside those check boxes or radio buttons or input text boxes over there. Then input type submit, we already know about that. We have been using that one in the last part as well. Input type is equal to telephone over there. This is actually the telephone number. It has a pattern also. We'll talk about that one also. Text, we have already done this one in the last part. We've used this one. Time, if you want to enter some time in some seconds or minutes, that is something. Then you have the URL if you want to enter some URL over there. Supposedly you want to enter something twitter.com or x.com or instagram.com. Then you have the last thing is the week. If you want to select some week for the whole year, since there are like 54 weeks in the whole year. So these are all the types of this thing. I will just show you some of them over there. We already know about this input type text over there. That is a single line input text field. We already use that one over there. You can see whatever you're writing down. We also did some CSS for this part. So this is the input type text, and we already have done this. And the next thing, very important, if you want to input some password, the only thing change will be in this thing, the type will be changed. Remember, the input tag names remains the same. The only thing that changes is the type. So the input of many different types is just like an element with many different types, and all those types are provided over here in this list over there. We talked about the text one last time. This is the password, and if you want to actually enter some password, let's say this is the small code over there from w3stool.com. So the input type is password over there. Let's say I want to enter something username over there. So if I just enter my username over there, and now I can enter some password, and now this time it will be just simple dots over there, and then I can actually submit this, and now you can see the password is written. Now it is shown because now this is going towards the server. Now this is visible. Again, you have to use the method type over there post, because this is going to be a password, so it has to be secretly kept and it should not be going towards the get command over there. So the method has to be post over there. So this is very important, that whenever you are asking for some passwords from users over there, and of course then if you want to put some limitation on the password, just like you always see on your Facebook or Instagram, that you have to always use some capital letter or small letter or maybe some underscore or some symbols over there, or any other symbol which is be forced by the website owner or whoever is actually having that username and password on that website. So that can be done in JavaScript. That cannot be done in your HTML. HTML only tells you, okay, whatever that field will be, that will be empty. So whenever I'm putting something value, it will not be shown because there may be some other person sitting with you. So the privacy is something a very important factor over there. So this is the password field, and you can do that password field very easily over there. Next thing after this one, submit button. We already have used this submit button already in our HTML document. We have not styled this submit button. You can see in this corner of my screen. It's very small, but we will style it today as well, and we will try to make this spin over there. So the input type submit is there, and that is actually, remember one thing, input type is submit, value is submit, and whenever you are going to press this button, it's going to actually take the action which is inside the attribute of the form element. Remember one thing, whenever you are going to press the submit button, the value is submit over there. You can write anything inside this submit over there. Let's say let's see this example. If you I want to, instead of this submit button, let's say I want to first name last name, I want to call it a register something. So the word register will be there. Still no CSS is being applied, but you can apply this on this submit button as well. So whenever you are going to just press this button, it's going to take me on this page. Okay, so the form attribute of action, whatever page has been defined over there inside this slash mark over there. Remember, this is the forward slash. I have seen some students making some mistakes over there, because whenever you are doing some HTML coding and you are actually giving some image over there, you have to define this slash mark over there, which actually tells us that the path at which, supposedly if that this page is not inside this action underscore page, it's supposedly some like in some document folder and then it is inside, then you have to give it something like this. But remember, this is the root directory, which is the htdocs folder inside your XAMPP. If you are on Windows, then it will be somewhere in your C drive, where there will be a XAMPP folder, and inside that XAMPP folder there will be an htdocs folder, and all those relevant documents. It's actually the root directory of your all work, whatever you are doing. So whatever images you store, whatever documents you store, or whatever something you store, will be inside that htdocs folder, and here in this case. So this is a submit button, and after this submit button, you can have the submit button, the reset button. I guess we have not added the reset button in our document, so I will just add this reset button over there. With this, let me just add this thing. This is our I guess input part 7. So with this input start button over there, let's say I want to add something over here, input type reset, and I will just add some line breaks over here as well. So just in case the two buttons are not that one, I hope my server is running. Please remember one thing, that today we are going to use the PHP, and for that purpose your server should be running. Up till now, if you have been using the Visual Studio Live server, that is possible and that can run. But whenever you are going to have the PHP running, or the database running, or the MySQL running, then you need this XAMPP server to be running always. This means that Apache web server should be running and the MySQL database should be running. I will show you at the very end, just little small part, how database is there. I will show you an example as well in today's part, but normally in the next part I'm going to discuss that how you're going to insert that value, what are the attributes, what are the values, and a little bit more into deep inroads inside the PHP. So when you've done this one, and if I go back and just refresh this page, so now you can see over there, I have now two buttons. One is reset, one is submit over there, and you can see very easily that there's two buttons, but they're very, very small. I still have to make them a little look aesthetically good in the CSS, so that we will do that later on. Then after the input type reset, you can see the two buttons. We can submit, you can make them again by CSS over there. Radio buttons, we already did it over there inside our radio buttons. That were the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. That was, we are asking the favorite language from the users over there. Then afterwards, checkboxes, we already done that one over there. Input type button, if you want to put some input box over there, let's say you just want to have some alert to the user or something like that, or you just want to populate something, or you want to have some function run. Let's supposedly in this form over there, you want to have some button, and that form button should load some value from a database. Then that button will automatically upload your name, middle name, last name, your regular language from the database, and then it will automatically move. But again, you require some JavaScript coding for that purpose. So for that purpose, if you want to load something from database, you need again a PHP connection to your database. This can be done by JavaScript also, but normally this is done by PHP mostly. So this is an input button. You can add an input button, totally up to you. Next thing, very important, if you want to ask the user what is your favorite color, very simply, I'm not going to add this one in our file because that will make our file a little bit more. So here you can see, you can select your favorite color. So here you can see with the label, that is select your favorite color, you have the input type is color. The only thing, remember, you are changing every time is the type. Rest things, ID, name, value is totally up to you, whatever you want to give over there. If you give a value, it will always be there. If you don't give a value, it will be totally empty. So supposedly I don't select a value over there. Let's just see what happens over there. uh, let me just take off this value from here and just run it. Now you can see it's black, empty. But again, if I click it, I can select any color over there, and let's say I select something, a green color, a greenish color over there. And I guess I have done some mistake over there. Yes, I have done some mistake because I have not the tag over there. So if I select now some green color over there, and now I press the submit button, it will again go to my action underscore page.php. And you can see now the favorite color is equal to hash mark. And as you know, HTML colors are responded by the 24-bit RGB. And this 66 is that R, 9C is that green, 35 is that blue mark over there. So you can see very easily that you can select any colors and you can store that color inside your database, inside, of course, in hexadecimal number form. You can convert this into its equivalent decimal form as well, again by using JavaScript, or you can do this on the server side as well. Remember one thing, I'm again repeating again and again, that JavaScript is a client side functions, and there can be a little bit manipulation done on the browser side by the user over there. But of course, if you are going to send that data towards the server and that server is going to process it, then there is no means that you can actually hack that server unless and until you have some inroads inside that server. Then you can actually bypass it and have some calculations done. The next thing, very important, if you want to have some data input over there, let's see, input type is data. Again, ID and name are again specific for your type, whatever you're doing. Let's say I want to enter some data over here in our over here. Let's say I just want to show you how this data works over there. Let's say after this branch statement or line break over there, I want to enter this over there. So let me just add some label as well. So let's say if this is a label, and and here, and this time I have to remember one thing: label has an attribute for, and for that one you have to change over there that whatever ID you are using over there or whatever name you are using. So this is the birthday. So choose your date of birth. So let's say I'm asking, so choose your date of birth. I'm asking over there in this button. So for is going to be at label you are using for what input, ID or name over there. And normally ID and name we keep that same so that it's easy for memorizing it, because to remember two things, for one for the CSS, one for the PHP variable, it's something very difficult. But otherwise, normally this is done. So just save this document, go back on my browser, refresh the page, and now this time you can see, now choose your date of birth. And now when you're going to click this one, you can see the dialog box of the date and year or something like that. And if you want to just go, you can select anything over there and you can select any date. Of course, one thing very important, if you are going to select a date somewhere, like supposedly since this is just in 2026 over there, and you select a date of like this 15th April 2026, which is still in future, and you select it, it will still go on. Why? Because there is no checks over there. There is no check that this is going to be always there. So you have to do this check inside your JavaScript or in your server page that you can't select that date because that is beyond the exact present date, because you can't be born in the future and you're coming back unless and until you are a time traveler and you are coming back, and that's why then you can actually do this form. Other than that, all these checks have to be done. Yes, there are some checks which are pre-built in HTML, and we'll tell you later on in this video as well how they're going to have it. Next thing, very important, same checks, just like I told you, can be minimum and maximum, which means that you can have a minimum and maximum attribute to be added, and that minimum and maximum is here in form of date. Remember one thing, in for date, your maximum can be, that means that 1979 12/31. So this means over here 31st December 1979 is the maximum date. And if you want to enter a date after something, so this is again over there. So you can add minimum maximum over there, but of course when you are having some registration form for some user and that is based on some current date, then you can't hard code your date over there. Of course, then there has to be done with JavaScript, and the JavaScript function is the date function, date parenthesis, open parenthesis, close. So you have to compare your date with that date. Of course, a 1 day baby or a 2 day baby or maybe even a 3 months or 6 months baby is not going to come and off or come to your website and register yourself over there. So of course, this has to be done with your JavaScript or on your PHP server side. So minimum and maximum are the attributes. Again, some of the attributes are going to have minimum and maximum over there, and I will tell you just later on when we complete all these parts that how this minimum and maximum can be done. Then, if you want to enter your date time local, this is something a little different. If you want to enter a date time local, this time enter a date also and time also. But again, this is going to be in local over there, which means your computer, based on your computer time, whichever you're using over there. And remember one thing, date time is not supported in Internet Explorer 1. Internet Explorer 1 is now Microsoft Edge. I don't remember that Microsoft Edge is supporting this or not. Do clarify me in my comment box that date time local is being supported by Microsoft Edge. I don't have that Microsoft Edge with me at present because I'm on Macintosh. But here you can select your date and time or whatever. So supposedly, let's say I want to have, let's say a baby was born somewhere in November 2024, which is still not possible because after just 1 or 1.2 years, you can't actually come on the website and you can register something. But okay, you can select something, you can select the date and time and whatever over there. You can write down any time over there. Let's say I'm using the keyboard at present, so 11:34 p.m. and now you can submit this time. So you can see now the birthday time is 2024 11-17. This T separates the time over there. This is actually a process of writing down a date time over there. This is actually a database specific time and date time nomenclature, which we will talk about when we're talking about the database over there. But this is the normal way, and you can see that 11 is being converted into, because that was PM, that is converted into 23 because we are talking about the 24-hour time format. So in this way, you can add a date time local as well, and you can select anything. Next thing, very important, if you are talking about an email, which is actually type is equal to email, this is going to always contain an email address, and depending upon your browser, the email address can be automatically validated. Now this means that you are, some browsers or some smartphones, they are going to add the .com automatically, but nowadays the uh, email addresses just not end with .com. maybe you have an email address somewhere from something different, like supposedly nowadays gmail.com is the most important user at present, but maybe someone has a different one which is not ending in .com, maybe it's ending in something like .co.uk, or maybe like something, if you are a university student, then your UET domain, or so university domain is going to come in over there, so it's going to be different. So but anyway, the point is it that it's always going to have that @ symbol over there. Again, it is not going to have any validation or any functions already incorporated, but it will still ask the user that you have to enter a email address, which means that the @ symbol has to be added. So this is something very important. Again, JavaScript has to have some checks over there, that you are not entering some spaces, you are not entering something without any @ symbol and all that stuff over there. So JavaScript is going to be something very important whenever you are taking some input from the user. Next thing, very important, if you are going to type an image over there, again, this means that you are going to have an image as a submit button. Remember one thing, so the path to the image is specified in the source attribute over there. So you can see over there when I'm going to have this one. So you can see this is a submit button. This is a submit button. But again, this is an image being used over there. Sometimes you have seen inside some of the websites, maybe some social media websites, that your link, the submit button is not a button. In fact, it's an image. So you're actually just converting an image into a button over there. So when this is going to be pressed over there, the action underscore page. So you can see F name and L name, they were empty. So they were having no LUs over there. So it was totally empty over there. So first name and last name were empty. If I enter something, let's say, and I just entered it, so you can see now those values over there. Don't be confused with this F name and L name. I will just discuss it at the very end, how this is going to work over there. And this add symbol is actually, but just for at present, F name is that same name of that attribute. If you remember this input over there, this name was the variable, this is the F name. So this F name is being sent to the server. Similarly, this L name over there and this L name is being sent to over there. And similarly, at the very same time, you have this X is equal to 44 and Y is equal to 46. And this X and Y is that width and height over there, which we have done over there. So when I press this button, wherever I pressed it, let's say I want to press it somewhere here over there. So you can see it is exactly at the center. So it's actually sending the coordinates of that picture. So wherever you are going to press it, it's going to actually submit those coordinates. So you can use this property to actually select something on your picture as well. And when the form is submitted, you can actually turn out that, okay, this is going to be, the user selected that area of that picture and it's being used as a form button as well. So this is something not mostly used. We always have a smart submit button always used over there. The type image is rarely used, but still it's very something important. Input file, something very important. We are not going to discuss this in this course at present because it's going to be a little difficult, but for some users, those who are interested, I will show you that you can submit a file as well and you can do some checks on it. Now this is a little tricky part because whenever a file is being submitted, you have to do a lot amount of things. That you have to first of all check that what is the extension of that file. You have to check out that what is the type of that file, what is the size of that file, what is the name of that file. Of course, the two users having uploaded two files of the same name. Let's say supposedly one user is somewhere sitting in Lahore, the other user is somewhere sitting in New York, and they both are submitting a picture 1.jpg. So whenever that picture is coming in, you have to change the name, you have to check out the picture size, you have to check out the picture extension. And of course, somewhere hackers, they also try to have the user have be sending out some malicious code inside that file. It appears out to be a JPEG image, but inside it is something malicious code which can hack your server. So you have to do a little bit, you have to be a little cautious over there whenever you are going to take that input type file over there. But you can actually submit that input file very easily over there. You can select it from your whatever over there. Since I'm teaching this AICT course, I submitted and submitted. So you can see my file is over there submitted. Now it's not saved on w3schools.com. Of course, they are not going to allow me to save it. But if you have a server and of course you have a server, remote server, you can save those files, you can change those files names, you can check it out. I will show you one example which is PHP based or server based, not JavaScript based, because this file has to go towards the server. And of course, whenever you are going to submit it, that file is going to be submitted over there. We'll talk about this later on when I show you one example, maybe in the next part over there. Very important, input type hidden, which means that this display box is not shown. Let's just say over there, this is the input type hidden. Its value is predefined. So it's not going to display to the user. So a hidden field lets developers include data that cannot be seen or modified by the users when the form is submitted. So whenever a page loads, let's say you have some tag or ID or some value, and that value here in this case is 3487. So whenever you are going to submit that form, that value of 3487 will be submitted. So a hidden field often stores what database records that need to be updated when the form is submitted. So whenever that page loads, you have some value, like supposedly this is ID or this is user number 3487. So that is going to go inside the database and show, okay, this was user number 3487. But again, this is just hidden from the user back end. It's always there, so it's not going to be displayed. Just like over there, you can see you have the first name, whatever I submitted, and I submitted. You can see the first name is submitted at the same time, but at the very same thing, customer ID is equal to 3487 also being submitted. So whenever that page is being loaded, this value is being also sent by that one. Remember one thing, this is hard coded over there. If you want your page to be loaded and you want your value to be changed, again you need some JavaScript code over there so that you can actually change this value at runtime. Supposedly you are being login, or you're trying to log in or submit data from New York, so maybe then you can add some value of like something NYC over there. So, and if you are coming from Lahore, so that can be found out very easily from your IP addresses or from your traffic from where you are actually coming on, or maybe if you are using a VPN or something like that. So that can be easily done by using this value attribute. But again, this has to be done at the runtime depending upon your IP address. But again, this hidden is something very important and programmers use it. But remember one thing very important, there is a note also given that when a value is not displayed to the user, it is visible and can be edited using any browser developer tools or view source functionality. So do not use hidden inputs as a form of security. Remember, it should not store some password or some sensitive information. It should only be used for some ID, something related to your IP address, some location or something like that, which maybe if even the user knows it or somehow it finds it out some using some developer tools, then it's not some harm to you or your website or the security of your website. So normally hidden type is only used for some customer ID, some ID for your website or some IP address based location or something like that. Similarly, month, as I told you, we've just talked about so this is again a month over there. If you want to just select the month over there, you can do that one easily by the type month over there. Rarely used because normally whenever we are entering the month or the day time over there, normally we do that. But if you want to separate everything, month, year, date, and all that week over there, then you can use this type month over there. Very important, input type number, as I told you in that example of the output as well. So if you have a type number, and here again you can see they have a minimum and maximum. So this means this is the minimum and maximum over there, which means you can't enter anything less than 0 or greater than 5. So if I have this example over there, you can see over there quantity between 1 and 5. Here the type is number. So I have to now press this button, and you can see now when I'm pressing this button, it will not go beyond 1 and 5. So it's, you can see this increase and decrease box buttons over there. I'm increasing it, so it will not go beyond 5 over there. So let's say if I want to change it to like 50, let's say 1 and 50, or let's say I want to change it from -50 to 50. So here the minimum would be then -50 and maximum would be 50. I run it. Now I can have, you can see now it's decreasing down, and it can go to up till -50, and it will not go beyond that. So in this way, you can submit any value and you can see the quantity, that is actually the variable name of that input box, that is actually name quantity, that is being submitted as -50. So in this way, you can submit anything. You have the minimum and maximum over there. One thing which you can add, another attribute over there, is the step size, and that is something very important. If you want to add a step size, now what happens over there, when I'm going to press this button, you can see now the step size, which means every time I'm incrementing it, the step is 2 instead of 1. So you can see now after 26 there is 28, then after 30, then 32, then 34. So the step size, you can do the step size of 5 even as well, totally up to you, whatever step size you want to have it. Or you want to even have a step size of like maybe like 0.5. So maybe zero point 0.5 is also possible. So you can see now 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. So anything is possible. So step is another attribute of the input element. Minimum, maximum, I already told you. Remember, since this is an attribute, it has to be inside the double quotes over there. You can enter this using any of the input fields over there. So very easily, this input type number can be used. Remember one thing, on the input type number, there are some restrictions, which are these restrictions, as you can see over there. There is a list of some common input restrictions. We talked about the maximum, we talked about the minimum, we have talked about the step size. Value you already know. If you want to load some value already by default inside it, then this is something. I talked about the steps over there. Required is kind of a restriction or just like a validation, that if you put this required word, does not have a value, it is just like a required value. Let's say if I want to put something over there, let's say I put a required word over there and I press this enter, and now if I submit it, it will still go on, but it sorry, I guess I have not written it or right over there. Yes, required. So now when I'm going to submit it, you can see it's not submitting. Why? It is asking me fill out this field. It's telling me it is required. So you can't keep it empty. Now, this is a small kind of a validation which can be done from the HTML, which means that you can do this required thing. You have to always do it. So you have to submit some value, like you can even enter from the keyboard as well. So if I submit it, then it form will be submitted. Otherwise, if I try to submit it, it will not be submitted, whatever. If I even try to press 8 over there and I try to submit it, your value must be less than or equal to 5. So this is something very important that you are going to have it. Then there is a read only, which means that again, this is just a reserved word with no values over there, just like an attribute with reserved word. Read only, and that read only means that this value or this input text or input type of is not going to be changeable. It's just a read only for you and it's not going to be changeable. Pattern, I will just talk about in when I'm talking about the telephone input type over there. Minimum, I have talked about. The maximum length over here means that the maximum number of characters for an input field, that how many characters you want to enter inside your input text box or your input field over there. That is something like that. Disabled, as you already know, that input field is disabled, and that is okay, because whenever you are having to have some JavaScript function and you want to disable something, like supposedly if someone has selected a gender of like male or female and you want to uncheck some of the check boxes below, then you can add this disabled attribute inside any of the input fields which are there. Plus, you want to use this checked over there, which means by default it is checked. For example, I wanted that, okay, HTML, CSS, I want that HTML is by default checked over there. So for in that case, let me just go back over there, and where I have this HTML, this is for input, this is for HTML. So here, if I write down this one, it is checked over there and I just press it on over there. So by default, now this should be checked. And when I'm going to load it, so you can see now automatically this is checked. So this is just like a already by default pre-selected value that a page loads, and this can be used for radio also and for checkbox also. But normally this is not used unless and until you want to use them. We'll talk about this pattern a little later just now in the telephone directory over there. So these are some of the restrictions which you can apply on your input restrictions over there. And these are the minimum and maximum. Of course, you can't apply the minimum and maximum on the input text field or something like that. But of course, minimum and maximum can be done for all of these input restrictions on the applied. You can have the, I already told you about this minimum, maximum, step, value, whatever thing. Then I just told you input range is a slider over there, which means that you want to actually, just like this one, you have a slider I told you in the output example. If you want to change this value between 0 and 50, let's say I just select somewhere here, I submit it, you can see the volume is 50. So this is just like a volume bar or a volume seek bar, and you can change this volume bar every time and you can enter any value. So it's something very good whenever you are actually going to take some input from them, because the users which are using on the laptops or somewhere on the PCs, they have this mouse in front of you and it's easy to control with the, instead of using the keyboard, the mouse is something very good, unless and until you want to enter some input text over there or something. But mouse control for the slider button is something, again, you can have the name, ID is there, minimum and maximum is there, you can enter anything value over there, so totally up to you. And again, you can size it with your CSS also. So this is the input type range and you can do that easily. One thing very important, input type search, normally not nowadays used, but again, if you are having a search engine just like Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo or somewhere else, then you can use this search type search. And if you remember, you are going to have this search over there. Let's say it's already going to go towards the Google. So let's say if I press enter over there and I submit it over there, so you can see the G search was, the word was Google. But again, this has to go to the database, and the database is going to find out, okay, which website you are trying to find out. So normally, if you're not working and if you want to search something inside your website, like supposing you have some product inside your website and you want to search it, then you are normally going to use this type search over there for your website over there. Next thing, very, very important, for in which the pattern word is being used, is the telephone, as actually used for a telephone number. And this is something very, very important, because whole over the world, the mobile numbers, the cell phone numbers, they have always a different pattern. For example, let's say you have this direct over here. Let me just resize it so everything is shown here in front of me. You can see now in this line what is happening. For this label, after this label, I'm just separating this line. Type is tel. This is actually the telephone. ID and name, of course, we already know we have to give them for CSS and for the variable. Placeholder, which means placeholder, I will talk about this later on, but just now since it's coming on. Placeholder means that this will be visible inside the text box, whichever you are going to submit, as a diminished value, which means it's actually telling the user that you have to actually enter a number in this format, 123 dash 45. This is almost a user standard number. So you have 3 digits with 0 to 9, any value. Of course, it can be 0 to 9, any value, three numbers over there, and then a dash, then a 45. This means that two digits again from 0 to 9, any value, any character can come over there, and then 6, 7, 8, again three numbers over there. And for that purpose, you always have a pattern, and that pattern inside double quotes is equal to, now see this very importantly, pattern over here means inside this strong hard brackets or rectangular brackets, you have 0 to 9. This is telling you, or telling the browser, okay, there is going to be a number 0 to 9. You can't enter any something A, B, C, D. Of course, it's a number, it's a telephone number. And then inside the curly brackets, this is the number of digits which are going to be there. So 0 to 9, anything but 3 in digit. Then you have 0 to 9, 2 over there. Then again 0 to 9, 3. So this time, if I supposingly, let's say I want to enter, let's just say I have this enter over there. Let's say I want to enter this thing and I submit it. It has to be requested. I have entered some characters, values, or alphabets over there. It's not going to remember it. So I have to now then select something. So it has to be like something 3 digits plus let's say I have done some deliberately some again mistake over there. So I will do it again. It is not going to be match the requested format. And why this is always doing it? Because I have used the word required also. So it's actually doing that validation. It's also asking for that one thing. So it has to be based on let me just rub this thing. Actually, it's okay, 123 dash 45 dash 678, and now this will be submitted. Why? Because it matches the pattern. It matches. And remember one thing, inside this 0 to Z, sorry, 0 to 9 and 0 to 9, 0 to 9, you can even have A to Z. You can have even any symbols over there or any something like that. Okay, there's one example as well. In the later on, I will show you that example. But this pattern is something very important if you want to take something, a telephone number or something, a special number which has some alphabets or special characters inside it. So you can ask the user, okay, this is the pattern which you have to ask or enter the data according to that. So this is something very, very important. And this is exactly the same attribute I was talking about, the pattern. So specify the regular expression to check the input value against. So you can have to find out that how many values you want to change over there, or how that value. Next thing, very important, if you want to enter some time, it has no time zone. So if you want to enter some time over there, you can enter some time, let's say 9 to 9:30 something, and you want to change to PM or something like that, or maybe AM as well. So you press A, it goes to AM. If you press P, it goes to PM, and you can submit it over there. So this is 9:30 that time over there. Of course, it's not changing it into that 24-hour because it's already in the AM. So you can select any time over there. So this is the time input type over there. Then just like just two or three of them remaining, input type URL. You can submit a URL as well over there. It can add that .com or something like that, or depending upon your website or depending upon your browser actually. So some smartphones and browser, they can do that. Try this one yourself. I'm not going to do that one just to save some time. The last thing, that is the input type week, allows the user to select a week and year. So you can do that one, input type week over there. This is just in accordance with that date and time and all that stuff, unless and until you are using the combined form of date time or simple date time local over there. So these are all the input types available, and these are all the input types available over here, which I discussed over there, everything from here till here. Then that all these input types, they have some attributes. Some of them I have already discussed them. I will just go through them already, just in a very fast way. Value, already know it, because if you want to give some value inside that text box or just whatever the value, that value has to be. Remember, this is not that placeholder. This is something different, which means if you are not going to, if this is a value over there and I place a placeholder over there, placeholder is equal to, let's say, inside, let's say I just change it over there. So that is something different. Placeholder is used for those boxes which are having a value. This value is that value which is going to be assigned to that variable f name over there. So it's something very different over there. So don't confuse this placeholder with that value over there. So this is that. Next thing, as I told you, read-only attribute, in the last link over there, that read-only attribute is this, that it's not going to be changeable, which means that you can't write down anything. So you can see if I'm pressing that keyboard or somewhere, it's not changing because there is the word read-only added. If I change this read-only, and now I can actually change anything over there. So this read-only attribute can be added if you want to disable something. So, but the word disabled is also there. That is actually the next attribute over there. You can use that disabled attribute also, and that disabled attribute, you can see this is disabled. So again, this is not showing over there anything. It's not changeable over there. So disabled and read only, this is something again similar, but a little technicality over there. It's unclickable and all that. The value of disabled will not be sent. Remember, disabled means that the value of disabled will be not be, or the input field will not be sent when submitting the form. Size attribute, we already talked about this size over there, because whenever you are having a text input, you can even have limited the size because you are asking for a pin number. So it can be a 4-digit pin or a 4 alphanumeric pin or something like that, but it's limited to 4. This means only 4 characters can be sent over there. So default value for this is 20, but you can have any value, and it can works for the text, you can work for the search, you can work for the telephone, URL, email, or password. Maximum length, we have talked about just in the last also, I showed you in that table. Maximum length means that how many number of characters are allowed inside an input field. Maximum length is 4, size is 4. If you want to select less than that, it's totally up to you, because there is no minimum over there. The minimum, remember, minimum and maximum is not related to the character length over there. It's related to the value, because minimum and maximum works only for the number type over there. It does not work for the character or something like that over there. So it's going to be something different. So maximum length again is an attribute being done. As I told you, minimum and maximum, they work for the input type, either date or either a number over there. So they can work for the number, they can work for the range, they can work for the date time local, month, time, and week over there. So minimum and maximum can work over there. And similarly, the multiple is also going to work over there. If you want to select some multiple values in the drop down box, or you want to select something from your files over there, so you can select some certain multiple files over there. Let's see, if I want to select some suitable files over there, so I can select some files. Let's say I have some 2 files over there. Let's say I have these 2 files over there, and I upload them. So now 2 files are uploaded. Previously there was only 1 file, so I can now upload 2 files over there, and I can submit them. Of course, they are not going to be uploaded. These are 2 files over there, so these 2 files can be uploaded. So you can use this multiple attribute over there, and this works with the following inputs for email and file. It only has going to have some emails and file that you can do it. Pattern, we already discussed that one over there. The pattern attribute specifies a regular expression that the input field value is checked against when the form is submitted. So it works with the following inputs: text, date, search, URL, telephone, email, and password. So you can have anything. Let's say, let's try this example, a little different from the other ones. uh, you can see very easily over there what is the pattern over there. Inside the hard brackets or the rectangular brackets, you have A to Z, small a to Z. So you means that a 3-letter word, which is, because in 3 there is, in curly brackets there is 3, so you can have a country code. Let's say I just press over here and I put, let's say, PAK. So this means that the country code submitted is PAK. If I want to, let's say I want to have a USA or something like that, this is something. If you want to enter something, let's say you want to enter something like CHN, that's actually used for China, so that is something like over there. So you have a lot amount of options over there. So you can actually enter this pattern very easily. So a three letter country code can be added in this side this field. So the pattern attribute is something very important. Kindly go through this global regular expressions over there, this link over there on w3schools.com. This will give you a lot amount of idea that how you can actually have this one. A placeholder attribute, just I was telling you about placeholder and value, the difference is the input placeholder attribute specifies a shorthand that describes the expected value of an input field, a sample value, or a short description. Remember, this is not the value, but if you are specifying the value, then that value will be displayed. Otherwise, placeholder will be displayed. So here you can see over there inside this pattern again is being used 0 to 9, 0 to 9, 0 to 9. And here the placeholder is written as a. But here inside this very same, let's say inside this thing over here, this is something like this. Let me just add this a little bit more. So after this one, let's say I want to add inside this one. Why it's not running? Actually, there is some problem with my browser, I guess, over here. Okay, so if I put a something value over there, let's say inside this value, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6, 7, 8, or something like that. And now I press enter. Now you can see what is happening. The value is being displayed, placeholder is not being displayed. So value has a little bit more priority than the placeholder. So that's why value is being displayed. But if I don't put the value over there, so the placeholder will be displayed and it's a diminished value, just giving you a hint that you have to enter the value in that pattern or that order or that text or whatever. So it works for the text, it works for the search, URL, number, type, telephone, email, and password. So it is something, the placeholder attribute. As I told you about the required attribute means that the browser itself going to check that you have submitted that value or not. Empty values will not allow the form to be submitted. And this works for almost all of them, the text, search, URL, telephone, email, password, date, number, checkbox, radio, and file. So if you want your file to be always having no empty values, then use always this required attribute which has no value. It's just simple a keyword over there or reserve word that is applied over there that must be written over there. We already talked about this step over there, which means that whenever you want to have a step of like -3, +2, -0, or whatever stuff, you can have this one step added over there. But again, this works for only the number, that range, date time, local, month, time, and the week over there. Because of course, in input text file, you can input text field, you cannot have a step attribute because step does not mean any value over there, so it will not be having any effect over there inside your uh, the input boxes over there. So step attribute works for the mostly for the number, range, and the date ones over there. And the second last or third last over there is the autofocus attribute. The autofocus over there means that whenever the page loads, that particular box is going to be highlighted automatically. So you don't need the cursor to go there. The cursor will be automatically placed over there. But if I don't use this autofocus word over there, again, a keyword or reserve word, does not happen anything. But if I change this to autofocus to something, this field over there, and I just run it now, you can see, yes, I guess if I not done something wrong, maybe, let me just, I guess, exactly, my browser is having some issues over here. I don't know why. Uh, always has some issues coming up. Okay, there is some issue every time I'm changing it. I guess there is some issue with my browser. I guess I have to restart my computer a little bit. But again, this autofocus works on that when the page loads, it automatically highlights that autofocus, that particular text box or that particular input field over there that can be done. Then, of course, if you are talking about the height and width, they are used for the image when you are going to use an image as a button. And remember, they always specify the height and width. If an height and width are set, the space required for the image is reserved when the page is loaded. And without this attribute, the browser does not know the size of the image and cannot reserve the appropriate space. The effect will be that the page layout will change during loading when the image loads. So this is something important. As I told you, this is rarely used, but still it is will send that submit button for that whatever that action is going to be done, and that is going to send the coordinates of wherever you have clicked inside that X and Y coordinates of that picture over there. Can you try to use this one and do tell me in my comments box that this height and width changes what and how this can be changed over there. And I guess second last, I guess over there is a long attribute list over there. So don't worry on this part. Normally, they are just some keyword, keys, reserve words which are already used over there. One is the list attribute, and that list attribute is actually the list over there, which means the data list over there. It refers to the data list. If you want to have the drop down box over there, just like I told you in the previous one, that you can have this all boxes over there. The Chrome is submitted, Edge, Firefox, Safari, these are all the browsers. So the word is actually data list over there, and this actually has the list over there. The list is that browser. So list is equal to browsers, ID is equal to browser. So you can see whenever you are having that list equal to browser, so you are defining, because every time you want to have that options written over there in horizontal line, it becomes difficult. So you are going to use this data list options over there whenever you are going to have. So supposedly if you are making some form for your browser, and that browser is going to uh, ask the user that, okay, from which state you are, from which country you are. So yeah, it's easy to write down all the countries in one list as Pakistan, sorry, India, China, USA, or Israel, or somewhere. So you can add all these countries in one vertical lines over there very easily. That can be done by the data list over there, which is actually another tag element for HTML forms. The last thing, which is very, very important, and for passwords and all that, if you don't want the browser to have a small history of itself, but again, this is superseded by many of the inputs over there. So this is that autocomplete word. If you don't want the browser to have some history of it, then you have to always add this word autocomplete equal to off. So by default, it is already on over there, but you have to make it under that. If you want to make it always on, then it is always going to be always on, which means that if you have run this website for like 5 or 10 times or even 2 times, it's going to keep whatever values you have submitted. So it is going to give you that history inside whenever you are going to go towards, or you're going to move your mouse in that input text field. So it works for the in text search, URL, telephones, all those numbers and dates and all that will be already automatically loaded from the history or from the cookies of your browser over there. But remember, in some browsers, you may need to activate an autocomplete function for this to work. So it is a little tricky part, because some browsers, they allow this autocomplete to be always on by default. Some browsers, they say, okay, you don't not going to complete it on. Of course, if you have a public computer, maybe in somewhere in library, then you don't need to do that autocomplete on over there, because then you are going to have a lot amount of people visiting it. Some of them will be using their user IDs or passwords or something like that. So autocomplete is normally kept as off over there. You can have it off, but again, you have to check the preferences in the browser menu also. If you want to completely confirm how this works, then go in the incognito mode or the private mode of your browser and then check it out. Then this autocomplete will never be working, and that will be the exactly the complete. But again, this is again depending upon the history of your browser, so it's a little tricky part, and many of the browsers behave erratic on this attribute over there. The last thing in this HTML form thing, before I can go on towards the PHP, is this input form attributes. Remember, whatever we have been doing up till now in the last 30-40 minutes is about the input uh, element attributes, which were either text or URL or search or telephone or anything, something. Here I'm now talking about the form attributes over there. And inside your form, supposedly if you have many different forms inside your page, then you can ID your form as well, which means you can ID your form as well, so that you can apply the whole CSS on that thing as well. So action is again a keyword over there, so you can actually apply the action over there. That is whatever page you want to actually go on towards the PHP inside your server, wherever this page is going to be entering the data. Then very important, the input form action is a little thing different. Form action is something which is used inside the submit button. And what is it over there? The input form action attribute specifies the URL of that file that will process the input when the form is submitted, and this attribute overrides the action attribute of the. So remember one thing, there are two things, one is action and one is form action. So the most commonly used is this action always, because this is the form attribute. But whenever you are using the submit button and you use this form action, this will be superseding the previous one. That is actually the action. So form attribute action works with the following input types: submit and image over there. So you can see this is being worked over there for this value. So this is a little different. So you can see two files are different over there. So let's just see this example. If I have some value over there, I have some value. If I click the submit button, you can see the submit button is being entered. But if I now this time, let's see, W3 schools have done something. Yes, okay, you can see now this time the input is the exactly the same whatever I have input, but the background is changed. So you can see they have two different files, action underscore page dot php, and here there is action underscore page dot page two dot php. So it's a little different over there if you want to submit as an administrator or something like that. So it's totally up to you. You want to submit yes button or you want to submit that button. So it's totally up to you, whatever you want to submit. So you have input type submit here one, you have an input type submit, but that's a totally different thing. So form action is just like a global attribute, but again, it is written inside the type submit over there. Then the form encryption type, which is something very, very important. That is the method, which is actually the form encryption type is actually the method over there. If you are using this method post over there, so it should only works with the method post over there. So this attribute overrides the encryption type of the form element, and it works with the following input types again, submit and image over there. So for EN C type, that is FORM EN C type encryption type, and the word used is multi-part slash form dash data. Again, you have to remember this thing. So this is actually giving you that it's going to encrypt your data, whatever is going to be submit over there. So it overrides the encryption type of the form element. So if you have written method is equal to post here, it will be overridden, and this time it will be submitted again, just like encryption data from your browser towards the server, whatever that page is going to be submitting that value over there. Then just like the method over there, again this works for the submit button or the type over there, that is the form method. It's exactly the same thing that is we have talked about in the last part as well, that was the get and the post method. So get and the post method are being used over there, get and post method are being used over there. So you can see either you have a post or either you have a met, and again this attribute overrides the method attribute of the form element. Remember one thing, what we are seeing over there, that whatever attributes we are using for the form element, they are being superseded by whatever we are writing down inside the submit button over here. So you can see that you are actually submitting it using post or whatever. Here you have written method is equal to get, but since you have written here the post, that is the form method, so it's going to be submitting using the post method. So you can see it is being overriding the form element attribute over there. I guess I don't need to go inside this get and method. I told you previously that in part number one, how this URLs were being sent from the variables were being sent by the get method, but in post method they are having a little encryption and they are going to submit it using the encryption method over there. Then again another attribute again for the submit button again over there, that is form target. Again form target is equal to blank, and it again is going to override the target attribute. If you remember it, inside form action there was a target equal to underscore blank, which means a new page was being opened over there. So similarly this is again going to open another page over there. Just let's say this is going to submit, and I have this one, and if I submit it, you can just submit it, it opens inside the same page. But now this time if I submit some value and do it, it opens a new page. So you can see there are two different types of button. You want to submit to a new window or tab, you want to submit it to another window tab. So you can apply two different types of form targets over there. One is target, so you have to add the target equal to double quotes underscore blank. Here this is the form target over there. Then the last thing, which is very, very important, is if you don't want to validate, this is the form attribute. If you don't want to validate it, then you are going to use this form attribute over there here, which means that you're not going to ask whatever has been entered, it's going to be validated. If you want to validate it, then you are going to use some other attributes, which I will talk about later on in the next part over there, because at present we are just building a form. We are not doing any checks over there. We will do this one in the part number 9 over there. We will talk about it, how you're going to do a validation. So it will not be validated when submitted over there. So these are all the HTML forms we have just discussed up till now in this part. And before I move on towards the PHP thing or whatever, and PHP, one thing very important here in PHP, whenever I'm talking about the PHP, because now input form is complete, our thing is done. Now you want to apply the PHP over there. And PHP, as I have told you previously, is just a server-side language. And before I move on towards the PHP, a PHP file will be saved as an extension .php. And PHP is always going to be started inside your HTML file using this word, which is there's angular bracket, question mark, PHP, and inside you can write down any of the PHP command. Here, this is the echo word. Echo word is just like the printf command in your C language or your cout command in your C sharp over there. And whenever you want to come out of your language, then you are going to use this question mark and angular bracket. So the point is actually this thing, you have started an HTML document, but inside you want to go towards your PHP syntax. So you are just changing your syntax, just like in this video, I'm talking in English. But if I want to go in some other language, maybe Indian or Urdu over there, then of course, then I have to change my syntax. Those who are will be listening will be have to change their listening algorithm also. So here in HTML file, I'm changing my syntax by using this command, that is angular bracket question mark PHP. And whenever I have done whatever is done in the PHP, then I have the question mark and then the angular bracket close. This means that whatever is written inside these two tags over there is going to be PHP. So this is something very, very important. Then little about the PHP. If I talk about the PHP is an acronym for hypertext processor. That is PHP hypertext preprocessor, preprocessor, and it is a widely used open source server-side scripting language. Remember, this is an open source, which means there is no proprietary right on everyone. There is a whole consortium on this one who are actually controlling this PHP, and it's a server-side scripting language, and they are executed on the server over there, and they are available on all platforms, either Windows, Linux, Unix, MacOS, or any other platforms, and they are compatible with all leading web servers, that is Apache, Nginx, Cloudflare, Microsoft IIS. At present, I am using the Apache web server, and you already are using the XAMPP server, which is actually working on it. And before this, I go on. You have already installed your PHP, so you don't need to do any something because you have already that thing. Very importantly, as I told you, whenever a PHP syntax is being talked about, you always have to start it with using this angular bracket question mark PHP and the question mark and this thing. So as I told you, every time PHP has to be written inside an HTML document or anywhere inside even a PHP file, you have to use this two tags over there. You can call it a tag actually, but it's not actually just like a tag. It's just like a angular bracket question mark PHP and then question mark angular bracket over there. And if you want to echo something, which means you want to print something on the screen, then you use the word echo. It's a reserved word, and inside your single quotes or double quotes, both are workable. That is hello world being used over there. So you can have it. Let's say I just want to show it over there. So you can see echo hello world, or let's say hello AICT over there. So this will be, it's taking some time because this is going to take a PHP, which is server side on w3schools.com. Remember, this is a PHP server. This is not working in my browser. This is working on my the server side. So whenever I'm going to run this, it's going to take some time to load from the server. So it's going back wherever that w3schools.com is working, and it's going to display that whatever echo word has been done. So it's going over the server, and then it is. And remember one thing, they are not case sensitive, which means the PHP words, whatever, you can use the capital ones, the small ones very easily. And very importantly, very important, the very important thing before I move on towards the other thing, in PHP, all variables, they start with this dollar sign. So if you want to have a variable, you just need to tell the browser inside your PHP start tag and the ending tag, dollar caller is equal to whatever that word. It can be a number, it can be a string, whatever types over there, we will talk about it later on. But this is dollar color is equal to red over there, and you can see over there whenever you want to input output anything. So here I have a value variable, color is equal to red, echo my car is dollar color, and dollar is that variable. So you can see that my car is red is being displayed. So let's say if I change this to blue over here, and remember one thing, whenever I'm writing down this variables, my PHP line has to end with this semicolon. So this is something very important. Just like your JavaScript or somewhere, you have to end it. So here there is no ending tag or starting tags over there. The ending starting tag and the ending tag are already added. So this color is this over here. So this echo is now going to display that my color, or sorry, my car is blue and my house is also blue. So here you can see when you are having this color, this is not printing anything because there is an empty, that variable has not been assigned. So whenever I'm going to press it over there, and you can see now this is taking the server. So my car is blue, my house is empty because it's not having any something. So here you can see very easily that your only the first statement will display the color. This is because the color and treated are two different variables over there. So you have to use two different variables over there. So the sensitivity of your word, is either capital or small, it has to be something very, very important. And if I go on towards the next thing, which is very, very important, just like in HTML, you have been using the commenting. In PHP, the commenting for a single line is being done by this two forward slashes. And if you want to do a multi-line, then it is being done by this slash mark, static, and then anything inside over there, and then static and hash forward slash over there. So you can apply your multi-line comments or single line comments. You can apply this, as I told you, with the slash mark static, and then anything maybe like 5 6 lines or whatever. You can do anything commenting over there, just like you can see over there in this one. The multi lines are commented, the two lines in between are commented, and everything is gone. Here this is echo hello is going to be printed over there. So this is very simply the multi-line comments over there. And very importantly, before I move on towards our main thing, that is the PHP variables over here. As I told you, PHP variables always have to start with the dollar symbol, just like this dollar age, dollar car name, dollar total underscore volume. You can use any score underscore as well inside your variable name, just to give you a little easy to understand whenever you are seeing your code. And remember, variable names are case sensitive, as I told you. So this variable and this variable, they are two different variables. So this is very important. The syntax of your PHP can be not case sensitive, but variables names are case sensitive. So you have to be very, very careful. So normally you always use the small letters over there. Now, a PHP variable, as I told you, starts with that dollar sign over there, and the output variables can be written directly, just as shown over there inside this example or this example over there. You can see echo, I love, and over here, and dot operator. Now, this dot operator is something very important that you are going to write down with this text, which is echo, which is being echoed over there inside your browser. It's going to be printed, and this is that dollar text over there. So this means I love w3schools.com. So you can see now I love and then space over there because there is a space added over there, and then dot. This dot operator is just like a catenation operator. So it's actually just like going to add this one, and then there's going to add the exclamation mark. So you don't need to add the plus symbol or something because this is just like a string being added together. So this is I love. So let's say instead of w3schools.com, I'll just say I write down I love Pakistan over there, and just like over there. So now you can see it's going to take some time. I love Pakistan exclamation mark. So you can add this dot symbol operator very easily over there inside your commands over there. And very, very simply, if you are going to have some number as a data and not some string, then you don't need to put some inverted commas or selected commas over there on this $4.